Slamat Pagi, to Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, to Dr. Siti Hasma, to our distinguished friends here in Malaysia, and to my distinguished friend, the moderator. Thank you. Puan Puan dan Tuan Tuan, and particularly good morning to the young people of Malaysia, in whose hands we need to place Perdana and the work of Perdana and the philosophy of Perdana for the future. Without you, we won't see this great concept developed by Tun Mahathir delivered, and delivery is everything. Having listened to Sami Al-Hajj and Mazim Beg, I feel like setting aside my 20 minutes and perhaps in silence, that we should think of those who are still being held by the United States in Guantanamo Bay. But perhaps I can't do that. But I think the Guantanamo Bay experience represents the very worst of the United States. But on top of that, it represents the almost total failure of the United Nations to stand up and be counted, for the Security Council to take responsibility, to attempt at least to veto what's happening in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and about to happen possibly in Iran. We need to see the United Nations get to its feet and take action. And for those of us who have worked for the UN in various capacities, it's a massive and extraordinary shame and embarrassment to see the UN fail so totally. It's just tragic. But for people like Sami and Mazam, I can only say I have extraordinary, massive, unending, unboundless respect. They really are extraordinary people. And all those who are still there, suffering without process, without charge for 7, 8 years, it's something we simply need to think about, perhaps every day. Well, it's wonderful to be here back in Malaysia. I worked here for many years and I enjoyed it. And the development success and the growth of this country is an extraordinary achievement. And it's, though many of the younger people, most of whom have left perhaps the auditorium, may not understand or may not appreciate the extraordinary developments in this country of Malaysia, they should. And congratulations to all. And of course, thanks and congratulations to Tun Mahathir. I note that Malaysian politics remains as exciting now as it was in the 1970s, and that's a good thing. Because people, young people in particular, need to feel involved, they need to see new ideas, they need to share new ideas. And this is an extraordinary country with a great future. And I think Malaysia, now the home of Perdana and a peaceful nation in the middle of a very violent world, is indeed something special. The fact is that amongst the world NGOs committed to peace and non-violence and anti-war activities, only Perdana is the one that's dedicated to ending warfare in all its forms. Perdana makes no room for exceptions that many anti-war and peace movements manage to make. There are no good wars. One cannot pick and choose. There is no good arms industry. The deadly weapons manufactured may support employment or possibly the economy, but at what terrible cost to many victims. Perhaps wealth only for a few, and clearly that is not acceptable. Often confused with patriotism, clouds the truth, as the corporations of the EU and the United States make billions of dollars in the great game they call warfare, but we call criminal activity. They have no purpose other than to steal oil, expand empire, satisfy greed, and make profit. And they will sell weapons to either side in a conflict, or to both sides, as they infamously did in the case of the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, hoping, in the infamous words of Kissinger, that they will wipe each other out. I trust you find that obscene, as I do. We have many examples of wars of opportunity. The Vietnam War, the UN Gulf War, and more recently, the 2003 invasion of Iraq. As we meet here, the people of Afghanistan are being crushed, as are many in Pakistan. Innocent citizens, crushed by the US war machine, assisted by some reluctant NATO states. It's a tragedy for all concerned, for the Afghan families, women, children killed, and the children maimed by unmanned flying machines, United States drones. These are the ultimate war toys operated by faceless boys of the United States military, sitting safely at home in Colorado or some other part of the States. They play computer games with the real lives of families in Iraq, families in Afghanistan, families in Pakistan, and the lives of others, such as the thousands of Palestinians in Gaza caught up in the Israeli genocide earlier this year. Israel used US predators, drones in other words, to locate victims for killing by planes provided by the United States. These game players, having killed innocent children, women, men, go home for dinner with their families after what they consider to be a good day's work. It is obscene. It is warfare at its worst. It underlines there never was or can be honor or decency or respect for human rights in warfare. Great wealth, oil reserves, strategic presence, empire, nothing justifies the state terrorism we see committed by the United States, the UK, and NATO in the Middle East, as we meet here safely in Kuala Lumpur. Nothing, even the charm of President Obama, cannot hide the ugly truth of his war plans for the Afghans and the people of Pakistan, not to forget the threats that he and others are making against the people of Iran. Even he apparently, despite his experience, 5 years in next door Indonesia, he seems unable to understand or to walk in the shoes of the Afghans or Pakistanis and understand what terrible crimes that he is committing as Commander-in-Chief when lives are being destroyed in his name, in the name of the United States. Is he really Nobel Peace Prize material? I don't think so. That is certainly a premature award. Perhaps we can only hope that the United States and NATO states and their failures in Afghanistan and the failure so tragically apparent in Iraq, although perhaps genocide was indeed the objective of the Pentagon and others, and like the defeat in Vietnam, these defeats, these failures, these catastrophes will further diminish the power of the American military, will diminish the danger of the American military, UK and NATO, and the aggression that they represent. With diminished power, perhaps we can call back the armies that dominate the world, the military atmosphere that predominates our world today, and move people in a different direction. Is there any law that says the people of the Middle East must become refugees so that the American economy can be supported, that the EU can grow in importance and support NATO, and that Israel can continue to kill and dominate its neighbors? I think there is no law of that type. I hope you agree. Perdana and its acceptance around the world is the only peaceful way forward. The law of Perdana, the philosophy of Perdana, is what the United Nations Security Council needs so badly. If we want to see an end to wars throughout the world, we've got to change the United Nations Security Council, the very member states that are responsible for peace and security. And the great irony is that of the 5 permanent states, they tend to be the aggressors. They are the makers of warfare. They are the manufacturers of weapons. They are the people, they are the states who have and control nuclear weapons. The irony